All right, so which one would you like to see? Or which number? Yes, number 15. So a certain forest covers an area of 2,000 square kilometers. This is number 15, if you want to follow along and take notes. So suppose that each year this area decreases by 6%. What is the function that best represents the area of the forest each year and how much area remains after 12 years? So keep in mind, yes, this is multiple choice on your test, like the majority of your test was, but your retake is majority open response. All right, so this would be like a question that you don't have any answer options for. So for the formula, you can use one of the ones that I provided for you. So if you look at the whiteboard, which formula would be helpful to me? So since it's a word problem, probably from the 5-2 lesson, is the one that's going to be helpful, the one with the plus sign or the minus sign. So is it increasing or decreasing in the problem? So then you need to use the one with the minus sign. All right, and it says decreasing, so that's your indicator that it has to be the decay formula. All right, so the one with the minus sign is for decay. What does the A stand for? The initial amount. What is my initial amount in this problem? 2,000. All right, so A should be 2,000. That doesn't really help me on the multiple choice because they all have A as 2,000. All right, but just know on the open response, you would have to know that the initial amount is 2,000. That goes first in the equation. All right, and then it's 1 minus R. What does R stand for? The rate, and it has to be written as what? As a decimal. So it's decreasing by 6%. What is that as a decimal? 0.06. Now, if you're ever unsure, you can write this down, like how to go from percents to decimals. You just divide it by 100%, and then you get 0.06 as your decimal. All right, so that can kind of knock out some of these answers for me. But if you notice, none of them have 1 minus 0.06, because what did they do instead? In the parentheses. They already subtracted it out. So what's 1 minus 0.06? All right, 0.94. And that's perfectly fine for them to do that. All right, it's just they subtracted the 1 minus 0.06 already. So that's why it's not A, because this should definitely not be bigger than 1 if we're talking about decay. So that's why it's not A. That's why it's not B, because again, it needs to be 1 minus 0.06. So really we're between C and B. They have the same formula. T we didn't talk about, but T stands for what? Time. All right, in the formula, they just kind of left it as X, which is fine. But then they want you to find how much area remains after 12 years. So that means T is going to equal 12. So here it is written with the T is 12. And then all you have to do now is take what's to the right side of the equal sign and put that in your calculator. Okay, so this goes in your calculator. If you don't like the Galileo calculator, well, guess what? You don't have to use it on your retake. You can use it as well. But when you put it in your calculator, what do you get? Is it closer to 1432 or closer to 952? It's closer to 952. So when you put it in your calculator, you get 951.8. If you round it, closer to 952. So that's why D is the correct answer. So questions. All right, questions on any others from the test? Yes? Number 6. All right, so number 6. So on your test, you'll have to do graphing, like it'll give you the equation and you'll have to graph it yourself. Since the Galileo test is mostly multiple choice, they gave you the graph and told you to pick the equation. So it'll be like opposite on your reading. But you should have used a particular formula, one that I provide to you. So is it the one for growth or decay? So is this graph growth or decay? Since it's decreasing from left to right, it is decay. So you had to use the decay formula that's on the board. It just doesn't tell you that it's decay. Sorry, wrong arrow. And it's the one that has the plus sign or the minus sign. The minus sign. All right. A again is initial amount. So what's my initial amount in this one? Where does the graph start at? At 45,000. Right, and I know it's 45,000 because it says in the thousands. Right, so good. A is 45,000. And then it's 1 minus the decay rate, which honestly, I don't know what the decay rate is from the graph. But I know that the number inside parentheses should be bigger or smaller than 1. Smaller than 1 since we're talking about decay. So I just know that in the parentheses, it needs to be smaller than 1. Because if it's 1 minus, it should be smaller than 1. And then to the t power, it doesn't say like, you know, put a number in for t yet, but you can see like it's income over 5 years. So then you have to pick the option that makes the most sense. So you can cancel out B and C because they don't have the right initial amount. So between A and D, one of these is for growth and one is for decay. So which one's my right answer? D. All right, because if it's decay, if it's decreasing, then the number in the parentheses should be smaller than 1, not bigger. Questions there? All right, so again, on your test, you will have to like, you know, make the table and use the equation to graph it yourself. So it's just kind of like reversed on there, multiple choice. And any others from the test? Go once. Go twice. You guys get the explicit rule one. There's explicit rule on your test. Let's see. Is there this one? All right, so number 3, I don't know if you guys got it right, but look at it because on your test it's a little more open response. So explicit rule. Do I provide you the explicit rule? Yes, that's why it's written on the board and it even says explicit rule right next to it. So I am providing you with this formula. But what 2 things do you need to be able to identify in that formula in order to use it? What gets replaced with numbers? So what does the A sub 1 stand for? Your first term in the sequence. What is the first term in the sequence? 8. All right, so A sub 1 is going to be 8. So that's why you should not have picked C or D because it did not have 8 in the first term position. All right, and then you were supposed to identify what else? R, which stands for kind of like your rate, but in sequences, we called it the common ratio. All right, so to find your common ratio, remember you needed to take one of the terms, except for like the first one. So take like 4. And do I divide it by the term before it or after it? Before it. All right, kids will get confused and they'll divide it by the one after it. So I would write this one on my note sheet. So 4 over 8 simplifies to what? 1/2. So then R is 1/2. A sub 1 is 8. That's why B is the correct answer. All right, A was there to trick you because kids forget whether they divided by the one before it or after it. So that's why that one was there. So any other questions from the test you'd like to go over? All right, last call. All righty then. I expect excellent scores on Thursday for your retake. All right, if you have any other questions, just let me know.